Hello everyone, this is a tutorial video of interpretation and it's gonna be a paraphrase from L2 to L2, and this time it's a podcast. The topic is about the most unusual New Year's Eve tradition. So let's start.
Hello, and welcome to English Learning for Curious Minds.
Greetings everyone, and this podcast is for people people with curious minds.
By Leonardo English, the show where you can listen to fascinating stories and learn weird and wonderful things about the world.
This podcast is you will be learning about strange or rare things around in New Year around the world.
At the same time as improving your English.
And you will also be able to learn or improve your English.
Alistair Budge, and this episode is going to be released on December the 29th.
And we're going to focus on the date of December the 29 or
So it's not only the last episode of the year, but it's also the last episode before New Year's Eve.
This is not only the last episode, but it is also focus on or related to New Year.
So, to mark this occasion, the subject of today's episode is going to be the most unusual New Year's Eve traditions.
The main topic is about the most unusual New Year's Eve traditions.
On this fun little journey, we'll come across colourful underwear, dark-haired men rushing into Scottish houses.
Some of the topics that he's going to talk is about different colors of the of underwear clothes, dark haired in men's, and also about some houses from Scotland.
Falling fridges, grapes, bells, and smashing plates.
Some bells and also about smashing plates.
You might know some of these traditions already, perhaps you know all of them, but I hope this will be a fun and light-hearted way to mark the end of the year.
Well, he hopes that this podcast is going to be really interesting or attractive to you, and also funny, because he hopes that you know some of the things that he's going to mention.
Before we get right into this, let me quickly remind you that if you're ready to make 2024 the year you really dedicate yourself to English, I'd love for you.
It's important to remind that in 2024 it's gonna be in England something.
You to check out our membership. It gives you access to interactive transcripts, subtitles, study packs, and more. And if that sounds like your cup of tea, the place to go.
You can subscribe and also have access to different things like the transcripts or the videos or full podcast.
Is leonardoenglish.com. Okay then, the most unusual New Year's Eve traditions.
It's okay. Let's start talking about the most unusual New Year's Eve traditions.
A few years ago, at about this time of year, I was given what seemed to be a strange gift.
Like some years ago, I have to do, or I have to search a gift and give it to some person in
by my father-in-law, by my wife's father. It was late December, and he presented me with a pair of red boxer shorts.
It was on December, and they showed, and they bought something for me and showed it.
Pair of red underwear. It didn't seem to.
But what's inside it was red underwear.
Be ironic. It wasn't some kind of joke. It was a genuine present.
At first, I told you it was like a trick or something, because it's a bit ironic.
But to me, it seemed strange. I mean, in the UK, giving underwear to your son-in-law, especially.
It was a bit confused for me, because it's not common to give red underwear to your son.
Actually, bright red underwear would elicit some raised eyebrows.
And also it was shiny red underwear.
It would be considered rather strange. I asked my wife about it, and she laughed.
I had to ask my wife, because I was so confused, and what she did was mocking at me.
See, my father-in-law, and my wife for that matter, are Italian, and
my wife and her father started mocking at me because they're from Italy.
As the Italians among you will know, in Italy, giving someone red underwear to wear on New Year's Eve is the done thing. It's something.
In Italian, they have a tradition that they give gifts to people, and that contains red underwear.
That many people traditionally do on New Year's Eve. Now,
this is something very common in Italy.
My wife didn't know exactly where this tradition came from, and there is one theory that it can be.
His wife didn't have exactly an idea of where the tradition came from, or where it started.
Traced back to ancient Rome, when soldiers would wear red clothes to cover up blood in battle. And there's another that it's the colour of love and passion.
And it is known that red is a color of passion and love.
In any case, if you are in Italy in December and see red underwear for sale in shop windows, that's.
If you're wearing red underwear, it's like a tradition to also close the window.
The reason people are buying it as gifts to give their loved ones,
and they give to other people red underwear, because it's like you share a love for them and love in their lives.
Now, to kick off this global exploration of unusual New Year's Eve traditions, we're going to start in the UK. But
to focus on these unusual New Year traditions, let's start first with the UK.
In a particular part of the country, Scotland, you might know,
especially focusing on a country,
that New Year's Eve is a particularly big deal in Scotland, and it even
In a particular country that is Scotland,
has its own name, Hogmanay. Now, if you wander around the streets of a Scottish town or city on the evening of December the 31st, you could be forgiven for thinking that the main traditions involve drinking vast amounts of alcohol.
well, if you go to Scotland, if you someday go to Scotland and start walking through the street, you'll be like forgiven for things.
And forgetting to wear adequate warm clothing. But there are some more traditional activities that you might be interested in learning about.
But there are also a lot of activities that you could do, and also you will be very attracted to these activities.
You might already know about singing Auld Lang Syne, eating haggis, and listening to the bagpipes.
Some of the activities is like listening to the bagpipe and eating traditional food, I think.
But you might not know about something called the first footing. This is a tradition.
It's probably that you hadn't heard about a tradition, and that is very common in Scotland.
That dictates that the first person to enter the house in the new year can either bring good luck or bad luck.
They have this tradition that the first person that goes through your door can give you good or bad luck. These two options.
If this person is a man with dark hair, that means the house will be blessed with good luck and prosperity.
If the person is a man who has dark hair, you're gonna have good luck. You're gonna be blessing. You're gonna
Prosperity in the coming year. If this person is a man with light or red hair, or any woman for that matter, it's thought to be unlucky.
And if the person who goes through your door has red or light hair, you're gonna you don't have lucky. You're gonna have a bad year.
So, in Scotland, this first footing tradition requires everyone to go out of the house before midnight.
When this tradition it's about to start, all the people has to go out of the house.
Then a dark-haired man to be the first to enter the house after the clock strikes 12.
And when everyone is out of the house, the man or the woman with the dark hair has to be the first person to enter the house, to get in and before to get in at 12 o'clock.
What's more, this man should bring with him a few objects.
And for the good luck, he has to get in with some objects.
First, some coal, which symbolizes warmth. Then a coin, which symbolizes money and wealth. And then some food in the form of shortbread, salt, and a black bun.
Some of the objects that he has to bring is a coin, because that symbolizes the money for the year, and some food like chocolate, I think, and so he will have food for all the year also.
And of course, how could I forget, he should also bring a wee dram of whiskey.
And also some of the most important things that he should bring, it's a bottle of
The tradition is believed to stem from the time of the invading Vikings in the 8th and 9th centuries.
this tradition has origin in the 8th century, and you have to give baking.
The Vikings came from Scandinavia. They often had red or light hair.
Specifically has its origin in Scotland.
And they were the sort of people that you definitely didn't want to welcome into your home. So you can see where this tradition comes from.
And these people has not a tradition or like the idea of hugging.
And if you're thinking, okay, I can see the issue with red-haired or blonde men, but what's wrong with all women?
As you can see, there's a big tradition of people with the dark hair or light or also red hair in men's, but how about the women?
Well, one theory about this is that it's because of an old belief in a crone goddess of winter and death.
Some of the old people or ancient people think has a different tradition or different thoughts about this tradition.
Called the Cailleach. This nasty god, who took the form of an old woman, would knock.
They have some surname for this story, and this girl becomes like an old woman
On people's doors and bring bad luck to everyone in the house.
and when he arrives to your door and knock it, he's gonna bring you bad luck.
So the theory about why all women are bad luck, as far as the first footing tradition is concerned, can be
That's why they believe that some of the women are not as lucky as a man.
traced back to this goddess. Now, let's move on to talk about a more modern tradition. But
Now it's time to move and talk about some other organs and traditions.
one that is equally, if not more, unusual.
One of these is that is not very common.
In the unlikely event that you are listening to this episode while walking around a suburb of Johannesburg in South Africa called Hill.
Well, while you're listening to this podcast, you'll be.
I would recommend you press pause immediately and seek cover. You get out of the streets. And this is because one local tradition involves the residents throwing furniture and appliances out of their.
One of the crisis or rare tradition is that people goes out and brings some furnitures or things that they have in their houses.
Windows onto the streets below. It might sound strange, but if you walk down the wrong street on New Year's Eve in Johannesburg,
It could be really strange or not or unusual, but if you think about it,
there is a very real danger of being squashed by a flying fridge or a stray broken television.
It's too risky, because if you're Scottish and you go to this, you're walking through the street and you see a broken TV.
Starting in the 1990s, residents of this particular suburb took to throwing unused and unwanted pieces.
If we go back to 1999, you're going to see where the tradition started.
Of furniture out of the window on New Year's Eve, as a way of symbolically saying, out with the old, in with the new.
And you will see that they throw the furniture through the window, because it's like it's also bringing the new and dropping off the old.
After all, this was at the time that the racist apartheid regime was abolished, which was clearly something to celebrate, but it has developed into a dangerous and problematic tradition.
And this is a not a good tradition, because it could be very risky. And
it's such a problem, in fact, that the local health services have a specially designed ambulance that looks more like a tank.
They have to be prepared, so the local service has created a new type of ambulance, and it's like if it belongs to the army.
It's huge, raised high off the ground, with large wheels and armoured covering. So
it's immense. It's so big, it's immense, and it has a cover like a tank.
As to protect the paramedics from falling fridges and cookers from the 10th floor windows.
And that will help to the paramedics not to hurt when some of the people is throwing the furnitures.
And, unfortunately, people do get hurt. In 2013, an 11-month-old girl was seriously injured after being struck.
And unless they created that, some people has already got hurt by this kind of tradition.
Struck on the head by a brick, and a total of 9 people had to go to hospital after being.
Some of them has had hurt their head, and sometimes it's worse than that, and had to go to the hospital.
Hit by things flying from the balconies.
They always get hurt by things that some of the people are throwing through the balcony or through the window.
So, despite the fact that it might have become something of a tradition, it is, of course, very dangerous and illegal. And
they have to think that this is not a good tradition, because they can hurt people, and it's also illegal.
The police have started to clamp down on it in recent years. So, who knows? Perhaps this year will be the year people decide to dispose of their old fridges in a...
Maybe in this year, people will think about it and realize that it's not good to do that kind of tradition, because you can hurt others.
Less traditional, but safer way. Now, moving on to our next tradition. This will be one that will be well known to our Spanish and Latin.
And they can also realize that it will be safer for some of them. Now, in Spanish traditions, talking about Spanish traditions.
And American listeners, and it involves grapes. Specifically, it involves 12 grapes, and is called Las 12 uvas de la suerte.
And in some of the other countries, they are used to eat 12 grapes at midnight, and it's called Las 12 uvas. It's called Las 12 uvas.
Or the 12 grapes of luck. In Spain, it is a well-established tradition where people eat one grape with every chime of the clock at midnight, leading up to the new year.
The tradition is about eating one grape for each sound of the clock at midnight. Each time that you hear the sound of the clock, you have to eat one grape.
The idea is to make a wish for each grape consumed, and
each of the grapes have the meaning of one wish, something that you wish something and you eat a grape.
It's believed that successfully eating all 12 grapes will bring good luck and prosperity for each month of the coming year.
Every time that if you eat all the grapes, you will have a good year full of blessings and a good life during the 12 months of the years.
Of course, this is easier said than done. There is about 3 seconds between each chime, so you need to eat 12 grapes in approximately 36 seconds.
It's a challenge because you only have 3 seconds for each grape, and you have to eat it fast. Eat them fast.
It's not easy, but one way in which you can make life easier on yourself, so I'm told, is by taking the skin off the grapes beforehand.
As I mentioned, this is something a bit difficult, but the way that you could do it faster and easily to eat them is if you retire the skin of the grape first.
But perhaps that is deeply offensive to people who are able to do it without interfering with the grapes beforehand, the 12 grape traditionalists. Now, in terms of where this particular tradition comes from, there are...
But some people think that that's not the right way to do it, because if not, you wouldn't acquire the good luck.
are a few theories. One is that it was started by a winemaker from the Alicante region at the start of the 20th century.
It is said that the tradition started at Alicante
as a cunning trick to sell off certain types of extra grapes that they would otherwise have thrown away.
and all started like a joke or as a trick, because the person will be if the person said that they could sell more grapes to the people.
Another, which experts seem to believe is more probable, is that it dates back to the end of the 19th century, when the Madrid bourgeoisie copied the French tradition of drinking champagne at midnight.
And there's obviously another tradition. It's it's related to the wine in France.
Eventually, normal Spanish people started eating grapes as a way of poking fun at the pretentious bourgeoisie.
And it is believed that the Spanish people started eating or consuming grapes because it's like kind of fun or entertainment or it's also related to the wine.
Whatever the origins, it is exceptionally popular, and no doubt many of you will be popping 12 grapes into your mouth on New Year's Eve. Hopefully.
This tradition has become really has become huge, and you will have to eat the 12 grapes.
To manage to get them all down before the clock strikes 12. And if you're going to try this, good luck. It certainly sounds like a more wholesome tradition than the unofficial Scottish whiskey downing tradition.
And I wish you good luck if you has thought on trying the 12 grapes, because it's easier than the whiskey, the Scottish whiskey.
Now, moving on, For our next unusual New Year's Eve tradition, we are going to continue with the theme of numbers, but for this tradition, we will go all the way to the east of Asia, to
Now it's time to move on and start talking about some tradition in the Asian part
Japan. New Year's
and focusing on Japan.
Eve in Japan is known as Omisoka. Much like
The way that Japanese people call New Year's Eve is Obisaka.
in countries all around the world, the new year is brought in with the ringing of bells. In Japan, these are temple bells, but instead
As you know, in Japan, there's a lot of temples, and they use them to celebrate.
of ringing 12 times to mark 12 o'clock, each temple bell rings 108 times as part of a Buddhist ritual called
Each of the temple pounds became more time or wait.
Joya no Kame. Now, where this comes from is also debated. Some theories suggest that
Well, all this tradition came from it's about devotion, because as you know, Japanese people it's a devout people.
the 108 number represents the cleansing of 108 worldly passions.
The 800 number has a meaning in Japanese culture.
Others that it represents the Japanese divisions of the year, or that it represents different kinds of suffering.
It could be symbolized like blessing or devotion, or also about hurting people, hurting something.
Nobody seems to know for sure, but it certainly seems like a safer tradition than throwing a fridge out of a window onto an unsuspecting.
Compared to the Scotland celebration of throwing furniture through the window, this is safer tradition.
passerby. And as for our final unusual New Year's Eve tradition, we're going to go to a European country that you might not necessarily think of when you
And one of the last tradition that is important to mention, it occurs or it happens in Europe.
think of smashing plates. Greece might be the country that first comes to mind in that respect.
If you think in smashing plates, Greece is gonna be the first country that comes to your mind when you think about it.
But the Greek tradition of smashing plates is associated with celebrations and festivities. When it comes to New Year's Eve, you are, in fact, more likely to hear the sound of smashing plates on the streets of
This is an ultra celebration, and it focuses on Greece specifically because it has been there for a long time ago.
Copenhagen or Aarhus than in Athens or Thessaloniki. In Denmark, it is traditional to save up your slightly broken or chipped plates from that year for New Year's Eve.
They have the tradition of save your broken plates or smashing plates in that time of the year, New Year.
Then take them to a friend's house and smash them against the front door of their house.
And what they do is to go to your friend, the house of your friend, and you have to mash them on the front door.
It might make quite the mess, but apparently, the bigger the pile of smashed plates you have outside your door on January the 1st, the more luck you will have in the following.
And they have the idea or the tradition that if there are more small pieces of smashing plates outside of your house, on the front door, the most lucky you will have during the year.
Yeah. And as for the origins of this tradition, yet again, it is something of a mystery. But it's thought to symbolize
The origin of this tradition is uncertain.
leaving negative energy and thoughts in a previous year and starting the new year afresh. And why do you do it on your friend's door? Again, nobody seems to know for sure, but
Well, you have no idea what to do during these traditions, or also your friends. But
the theory is that smashing plates against a door is a way of saying thanks and of wishing that person good luck for the next.
what it means for from people from Greece is that you thank your friends for all what they did to you, or how they support you during that year, and it's like thank them.
Year. So there we have it, a selection of unusual and unorthodox New Year's Eve traditions. You've heard about Italian red underwear,
And well, as you heard, there were several ways of unusual tradition, and first we started with red underwear. That is a tradition in Italy.
my Italian red underwear that is, why a man with red hair shouldn't be the first person through the door in the new year in Scotland,
And remember that red hair men shouldn't be the first person to get into your house in New Year's.
why you should make sure you look up in Johannesburg, a trick to eat 12 grapes more quickly,
And also to eat the 12 grapes quickly.
number of times the temple bells ring in Japan, and why you might
And hear the bells in Japan, and about hearing the bells in Japan.
find piles of smashed crockery all over Denmark on January the 1st. All that remains for me to say is Happy New Year. If you're
And it's important to mention that to celebrate New Year,
listening to this before January the 1st, I hope you have a wonderful New Year's Eve. And if you are listening to this on or after
I wish you a happy New Year's Eve. And while you're listening to this,
January the 1st, I hope you celebrated in style. And my special message for any listeners of the Johannesburg suburb of Hillbrow,
and I wish you, while you're listening to this, you're having a great, you'll be in January 1st and having a good year.
is this. Congratulations, you're alive. I'm glad you managed to avoid the falling fridges. Okay then,
And I'd like to send a message to some people and have
that is it for today's episode on unusual New Year's Eve traditions. I hope
this is the end of the episode.
it's been an interesting one, that you've learned something new, and that perhaps you might have found some inspiration.
And it's important that you have learned unusual or attractive or rare things about these traditions.
For some traditions you might like to take up. As always, I'd love to know what you thought about this episode. What other traditions would you like to have learned about?
And I wish you a good year. My love to all of you. And tell me about what other topics or traditions would you like me to talk.
There were loads more to talk about, but in the interest of time, we had to skip over Brazilian underwear and Ecuadorian effigy burnings.
like some of the tradition of in Brazil or in Ecuador.
So let me know, what are some weird and wonderful traditions in your country? You can email hi@leonardoenglish.com, or for the members of...
And let me know, what traditions do you know? What is the rare or unusual tradition that you practice in your country?
Among you, you can head right into our community forum, which is at community.leonardoenglish.com, and get chatting.
You can contact me in some of my social networks.
Way to other curious minds.
And remember that it's related to curious minds. And well, that's the end of my interpretation from L2 to L2. Bueno, para ser honesta, creo que uno de los primeros errores que cometí fue que el podcast estaba en inglés británico, entonces es más difícil porque hay muchas palabras que no lograba entender lo que decía. Bueno, no lograba entender lo que decía por la pronunciación que ellos tienen, entonces me complicaba más. No hablaba muy rápido, pero sí también habían palabras que por más que le entendía, no sé lo que significan. Aún mi vocabulario no es muy amplio para conocer, y eso que el tema es un poco... Bueno, el tema no es complicado, pero sí mencionan ciertas palabras que realmente no comprendía. Y también algo que pude notar en mi interpretación es que al no entender esas palabras yo no sabía lo que estaba pasando, o sea, no sabía lo que estaba diciendo, y no podía pensar en otra palabra porque pues, si no sé el significado de una, ¿cómo voy a pensar el significado de otra? Obviamente habían algunas que como que me sonaban y pensaba que significaba eso, entonces yo lo decía. Y también hubieron otras veces que sí realmente no sabía qué decir porque o me olvidaba. Bueno, principalmente fue ya casi al final que me olvidaba de lo que había dicho la persona, entonces era como que me quedaba callada. ¿Por qué? Porque ¿qué iba a decir? Nada. Entonces volví a ponerle play o dejaba que a veces avanzara mucho el audio porque habían ciertas partes que como no entendía, bueno, prefiero que siga y ya digo la parte que sí medio entendí. También, ¿qué más vi? Sí, me llegué a cansar mucho, fue muy pesado porque también, aparte que no entendía, no sabía pensar rápido en qué palabra usar. A veces terminaba repitiendo lo que decía el autor del podcast, porque no se me ocurría ninguna otra palabra en inglés. Entonces en esa parte tengo un problema con el vocabulario, de que necesito aprender más maneras de decir ciertas cosas en inglés. Y pues sinceramente eso fue todo. Siento que me movía también mucho, o trataba de moverme, pero porque ya me había cansado, entonces de repente me acercaba mucho así el video o así porque ya era muy pesado, y ya realmente al final del audio del podcast yo ya no sabía qué estaba diciendo. Y era como que solo lograba captar ciertas palabritas y eso era lo que medio le buscaba, cómo podía decirlo, pero también siento que lo decía un poquito más rápido que la otra vez que lo dije en español, porque ya no sobrepensaba, y creo que por lo mismo que ya no sobrepensaba qué palabra usar, era porque pues obviamente no tengo un vocabulario muy amplio. Y tuve que cortar el video, bueno, no lo tuve que cortar, sino que se cortó porque de hecho se va a ver, ya no tenía espacio en mi teléfono, entonces automáticamente se cortó mi grabación y ya no quise volver a empezar desde cero porque ya llevaba bastantito avanzado. Entonces si se ve ese corte, no es porque yo haya querido, porque yo lo haya pausado, sino que fue algo relacionado al espacio de mi teléfono. Y finalmente eso es todo. Siento que sí es un poquito pesado. En esta parte sí es más fácil. Sí, bueno, y que sea un poquito más fácil repetición. No sé por qué, al contrario del español, en español se me facilitó más la otra, la de parafraseo, la de parafraseo, y en este caso siento que se me facilita más la de repetición de inglés a inglés. Y eso es todo lo que vi en mi video, que se me quedaba muchas veces, que iba a olvidar, que no entendía las palabras que decía el autor por lo mismo del inglés británico.